There are moments in life when the world feels heavy in your hands, as if every breath carries the weight of something unspoken. That night was one of those moments for me. I remember standing outside my front door, the cool air brushing my cheeks, my keys trembling slightly between my fingers. My name is Claire, and after the week I'd just survived endless deadlines, a phone that wouldn't stop buzzing, and my mind stretched thin, I wanted nothing more than a little peace. Just one quiet evening. I didn't know yet that this night, of all nights, would become the turning point of my life, and my son's. 4 years, Fridays had belonged to us. Movie night, our ritual, our anchor, the tradition Noah and I had clung to since Mark passed away 5 years ago. Even now, the memory still sits in my chest like a soft bruised dull, familiar, always there. As I stepped inside, the familiar smell of buttered popcorn wrapped around me, warm and comforting like an embrace I didn't know I needed. Noah, my 18-year-old, was already sprawled across the couch, hoodie half over his head, long legs hanging off the edge like he owned the whole living room. His grin widened the moment he saw me, mischievous and sweet in that way only he could pull off. "Perfect timing, Mom," he said, clicking the remote toward the glowing TV. "You made it right before the previews." The red Netflix logo pulsed across the screen, and despite everything weighing on me, I smiled. There were pieces of Mark in that boy, his humor, sharp and dry, always timed perfectly. But Noah had my softness too, in his quiet eyes, the kind that carried questions he never said aloud. Ever since his father passed, he'd learned to carry his grief quietly, like a fragile box he didn't trust the world with. Sometimes, I wished he'd let me help him hold it. The movie he picked was one of those twisty psychological thrillers. He loved secrets, lies, betrayals hidden beneath ordinary moments. Halfway through, just as tension was rising on screen, the lights flickered once, twice, and then died completely. The TV snapped to black. The hum of electricity vanished. Only the steady tapping of rain against the windows filled the room. I groaned into the darkness. "Seriously? Again?" Noah chuckled. "This house needs a full reboot, Mom." I nudged his knee. "Watch it. This house raised you." "Touché," he said, smirking even in the dim outline of emergency shadows. I fumbled around for my phone flashlight, but Noah shook his head. "Let's wait it out. Power comes back pretty quick." So we sat there, wrapped in blankets, listening to the rain thicken into a steady rhythm. At first, we stayed quiet, letting the darkness settle. Then something shifted. Maybe it was the stillness. Maybe the storm. Maybe the way silence can crack open old doors. It started innocently. School stories, his dramatic retelling of how his math teacher clearly had it out for him. A rumor about his friends. But slowly, as though pulled by invisible threads, Noah's tone softened. His words turned inward, thoughtful. "It's weird," he murmured, "thinking about stuff Dad won't be here for graduation, driving, all the things he used to talk about." His voice trembled at the edges. I felt my heart cinch. Before I could respond, he asked quietly, "Do you think he'd be proud of me?" The question landed deep in my chest, sharp and unexpected, like someone had reached in and squeezed. I turned toward him, though the room was nearly pitch black. "Oh, Noah," I whispered, "he'd be proud of you every single day. You have no idea how much he loved you." And for a long moment, silence became its own language, a silence heavy with everything we'd both lost and everything we still held on to. Just as that quiet began to settle into something warm, the lights blinked back on, jolting the room into brightness. The movie resumed instantly, jumping into some dramatic twist about a teenage boy discovering he was adopted. I noticed Noah stiffen slightly beside me, his jaw tightening, his eyes pinned to the screen as if it held answers he wasn't ready to voice. A few minutes in, he pressed pause. The sudden stillness felt strange, like the air had thickened. My stomach knotted. "What's wrong?" I asked gently. He didn't look angry, just searching, deeply, carefully. "Mom," he said quietly, "have you ever kept something from me?" My pulse skipped, a quiet stutter in my chest. Of all the questions he could ask, that was the one I'd always feared. "What do you mean?" I managed, keeping my voice calm even as something inside me tightened. He swallowed hard. "I found something last week, in the attic. Letters. From someone named Adrian. They were written to you. And they mentioned a baby." My breath caught. The room, bright a moment ago, suddenly felt too small. Adrian, a name I hadn't spoken in 18 years. A chapter of my past I had buried so deep, I nearly convinced myself it had never existed. I felt my hands tremble. What exactly did you read?" Noah hesitated, worry flickering across his face. "I didn't read everything. I stopped when I realized they weren't for me, but they mentioned me. Mom. The truth pressed against my ribs, rising like a tide I could no longer hold back. He deserved to know. He always had. But now that the moment was here, the words clung to my throat, heavy as stones. Noah, I whispered. I was going to tell you. I just didn't know when or how. He leaned closer, voice unsteady. Tell me what? I looked into his eyes so familiar, yet suddenly echoing a past that wasn't mine. You're adopted, I said softly. But not in the way you think. His breath hitched. So, you're not my mom. I am, I said immediately, my voice cracking, just not by blood, but by choice, and by every heartbeat I've ever had. I drew in a shaky breath, trying to steady myself. You were left at a hospital. Alone. You were only a few hours old. I was volunteering there that day, and when I held you, a tear slipped before I could stop it. Something in me said, don't let go. And I didn't. Noah stared at me, eyes wide, bewildered. Did Dad know? Yes, I whispered. Mark knew everything. We chose you together. The room was quiet except for the soft hum of the paused TV. Noah looked down, his voice barely audible. Then, who were my real parents? The question sank into the room like a stone dropped into still water, rippling outward, opening a space I knew we would have to walk through whether either of us was ready or not. I swallowed, feeling the past brush against me like a cold draft from a long-sealed door. The letters you found, I said, my voice trembling slightly. They were from your biological father, Adrian. The name lingered in the air, fragile and unfamiliar to him, painfully familiar to me. He left them for you at the hospital, along with a small box. I gestured toward the side drawer, the one place I had kept that wooden box hidden for nearly 2 decades. I saved it, I whispered, because I knew one day you'd want answers. Noah's eyes flicked toward the drawer, uncertainty swirling inside them, fear, curiosity. Something deeper I couldn't name. He didn't move, not yet, and neither did I. The moment stretched, delicate and dangerous. As if one wrong breath could shatter everything we thought we knew. And then Noah finally exhaled, voice low. Mom, what happened to him? I looked at him, unable to stop the ache blooming in my chest. This was the part I had feared most, the truth that had haunted me for years. There's something you need to know, I whispered. My voice softened, breaking at the edges. Adrian didn't leave you by choice. His eyes lifted slowly to mine, searching, bracing. Then why? The rain outside began again, soft at first, then heavier, tapping against the windows like insistent fingers. I felt the weight of the moment settle fully between us, the truth rising like a storm I could no longer outrun. Noah, I said carefully. And before I could finish, something shifted in his expression, as if he already sensed the answer he wasn't ready to hear.